things I'd like you to think about before we get started training the dogs. The first one is, what reinforcement are you going to use? Ideally, you've got rewards that you can hand the dog and rewards that you can throw. Now, the most optimal thing would be to have cookies and toys being equal value, but that's not always reality. So if food is the highest value reward for your dog, that's fine, we're going to use plenty of it. But I also encourage you to have throwable food items such as a lotus ball or a treat hugger so that you can reward off of your body. Or if you're training indoors or on mats or something, it's very easy to throw a cookie that they can go grab. Just make sure that that cookie is not crumbly and is easy to pick up and eat, because you don't want the dog to then look for its 85,000 cookie cousins. I often will tell the dog, get it, or some other type of thing which says, now you may have the cookie. Now, if the dog doesn't love toys, we can use those other items as toys. If they do love toys, great, we will be incorporating that as well. I think you'll find that many of the early foundation games are best played with food reward, but we'll be able to mix in toy play throughout as well. Now, the second thing you need to do is make sure that you don't reward incorrect responses or unwanted responses. So if the dog just starts randomly running around the wing to circle it, I would just call them back, tell them they're cute, maybe hold them so that you don't get this obsessive circling. Also, especially once we add movement, if you say a verbal, but maybe your body language did something else and the dog goes with the body language, not the verbal, it's really important that you don't just reward that. The reason is, if we're trying to get the dog to pay attention to words and we reward them for doing something differently, then they're going to be very confused, and confusion is the death of motivation. So if you make a mistake and the dog does not hear the word right or they respond incorrectly, no big deal. I tell my dog they're cute, and then I immediately, within like a half a second, fix it so that the dog can get it right with the verbal and then reward. If you reward an incorrect response, I call those guilt rewards, then you will end up getting more incorrect responses, at which point, at some point, you're gonna get a little cranky, stop rewarding it, and then the dog will be confused. I think of it like this. You're trying to get the dog to understand sit on a verbal cue without you having to help physically. If half the time you reward the dog when he lies down, when does he know exactly what sit means? Now, it's our job to be very, very clear as we can so that they can be correct. But if they're not correct, fix real quick just by re-cueing it and then reward. I don't get mad. I don't give a punishment marker. I never, ever, ever put my hands on the dog in any negative way. But I will very quickly re-cue, fix the behavior, and go. If the dog fails twice, I will help the dog somehow to get it right and then reassess what I'm doing, because 2 failures in a row is usually a sign that the dog does not know what we're doing and we're moving too quickly for what the dog needs at that moment. Now, one other thing with verbals is, in agility, you are welcome to say that verbal as many times as you need to. It is not a rule where you say it once and you hope the dog hears it and responds. You can repeat the verbal. I think of it like this. Agility is a bagel and your verbals are butter or cream cheese. It's really up to you. I like them both. Now, when you've got your bagel, do you just put a little tiny piece of cream cheese on one little corner? I don't think so. I think you spread it around. How thick or thin you spread it depends on the cream cheese and the bagel, but it is spread evenly. So if you need to say go, say it a couple of times. Go, go, go. Or how about your rap cue? Check, 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 check. Say that a couple of times. It can only help the dog to hear it more than once. So remember to spread your verbals over the line, just like you would spread your butter on your bagel. 2 other things that you can do to help the dog begin to understand these verbals. When you are on course or in real life walking around your house, if you're pretty sure the dog is going to execute the behavior that you want, just name it, just say it. So if you're on course and you know your body language is going to support a nice left turn, use your left verbal. Or if you know that you're easily going to get the backside, use your backside verbal. just start applying the verbals in ways that will help the dog so that when we are not there physically, they've had enough pairing of the verbal with the correct response that they are much more able to help you out and respond to the verbal only. So don't be shy about preparing yourselves to use those verbals by adding them to places where you think the dog will get it right. Now, the flip side is a lot of people tell me that they don't want to use verbals because they can't remember them. Bear in mind, you've got an 8-minute walkthrough at a trial to plan your verbals. So in your walkthrough, start thinking about your verbals. Make it a way of life, whether it's in class or at a trial. Just start throwing them in there, and you'll be surprised at how they become second nature very quickly. One more thing to think about is the mantra that will help us in this whole class. Help as much as needed, but as little as possible. That refers to using body language and other things to help the dog understand the verbal cue. In the early stages especially, we're going to help the dog as much as they need us to help them, but as little as possible. So if the dog doesn't need a lot of help, we're not going to overhelp. The goal is that we can fade the help out and they can do stuff just on verbals. Wouldn't that be lovely? And then in the second class, in the proofing class, we're going to fade the help as much as we possibly can and add some distractions to see what they can do. So always keep in mind, help as much as needed, but as little as possible. If the dog is struggling, you need to help more. If the dog has it and they're just nailing it, you can start to help less.